There's this person at almost every office. You've seen them, maybe you are them. They show up early, stay late, handle the hard stuff without complaining, and somehow always deliver. Their work is clean. Their communication is sharp. Their manager praises them constantly. And everyone around them at some point has thought that person is going places. But here's the thing. A year passes, then two. Thea's still in the same seat, still doing the same work. Except now there's more of it. The projects got bigger. The team got smaller. And somehow everything that actually matters still ends up on their desk, not because they asked for it, but because it just always does. And nobody questions it, not even them. This isn't a story about a bad company or a bad boss. This is a pattern. And once you see it, you're going to start noticing it everywhere in your team, in your organization, in the people you admire, and maybe, uncomfortably, in yourself. Most people walk into a workplace believing a pretty simple deal. You work hard, you deliver results, you get recognized, you move up. It's clean. It's logical. It's what you were told growing up in school, in every motivational post you've ever scrolled past. The idea that effort equals outcome feels almost too obvious to question. But here's what nobody tells you. In most organizations, the people who do the most work and the people who move the fastest are almost never the same people. Think about that for a second. The person carrying the heaviest load is usually the person who's stuck. Not because they are not talented, not because they are not seen. Actually, they are seen too much, just not in the way they think. When you're the person who always delivers, something quietly shifts in how the people above you think about you. You stop being seen as a candidate for the next level. You start being seen as the solution to their current problem. And those are two completely different things. A candidate is someone you invest in, develop, and eventually move forward. A solution is something you use, rely on, and protect because losing it would hurt. And here's the dark irony. The better you get at your job, the more valuable you become to keep exactly where you are. Your competence becomes your cage. Now let's talk about the other type of person. The one who's quietly doing something very different. You've seen this person too, though you probably haven't been watching them the same way. They don't dominate meetings. They don't volunteer for everything. They don't send emails at midnight. They are not the loudest voice in the room, and they are not always the most visibly busy. But somehow, they keep getting promoted. They keep ending up in rooms you're not in. They keep getting opportunities that don't seem to be advertised anywhere. And when you try to figure out why, it doesn't quite add up. Their work is good, but not always better than yours. Their hours aren't longer. Their skills aren't obviously superior. And yet there they are moving. Here's what's actually happening. That person understands something that most high performers don't. They understand that in a workplace, perception is not just important, it is the game. Not the work itself, the perception of the work. And those two things can be managed very, very differently. They are not working less. They are working on different things. Things that are visible to the right people. Things that signal potential rather than dependability. Things that make a decision maker think, I want to see what that person can do at the next level, rather than, thank God we have them right where they are. They don't compete directly. They don't try to outperform the high performer at their own game because they know that game is rigged. If you win at being indispensable, you just become more indispensable. So instead, they move sideways. They build relationships in places that aren't obvious. They ask questions in meetings that make people think rather than demonstrate what they already know. They make it easy for the right people to take credit because they understand that credit isn't the goal, access is. They reveal almost nothing about where they are trying to go. And that last part is more important than most people realize. Now think about how you show up at work. Be honest with yourself here. When something goes wrong, do you over-explain? Do you send the long email laying out exactly what happened, why it happened, and what you've already done to fix it? Because that feels responsible, right? That feels like ownership. But what it actually signals is anxiety. And anxiety in a high-pressure environment reads as fragility. Even when you're completely in control. When you do something well, do you need someone to acknowledge it? Do you wait for the reply, the shout-out in the meeting, the message from your manager saying great work? Because most people do. And the moment you need that validation, you've handed over a kind of leverage you didn't mean to give away. People can feel when someone needs to be seen. And people sometimes, without even meaning to, will use that. When you're excited about a new opportunity, do you talk about it? Do you tell your colleagues where you want to go, what role you're interested in, what you're hoping to move into? Because it feels natural to share that. It feels like building relationships. But in a competitive environment, revealing your intent is almost always a mistake. Not because everyone is your enemy most arrant, but because information about your ambitions changes how people treat you. It changes what they share with you. It changes whose side they instinctively take when something political comes up. The person who moves quietly through organizations understands one thing at a deep level. In any environment with limited resources and limited positions, information about you is never neutral. It is always being filed away, always being used even unconsciously by the people around you. And most high performers, the ones doing everything right on paper, are the most transparent. They work hard and they show that they are working hard. They are ambitious and they talk about their ambitions. They are frustrated and they let that frustration be visible in ways they don't even notice. Meanwhile, the quiet mover is almost unreadable. You don't really know what they want. You don't fully know what they are working on. You don't know who they've been talking to. And that slight uncertainty, that mild unreadability, gives them a kind of psychological weight in the room that the most talented person in the room often doesn't have. Here's a line worth sitting with. The person who seems the busiest is rarely the person building the most. Busyness is visible. Building is not. And there's something else happening in these environments that almost nobody talks about directly. The people at the top of most organizations are not looking for the hardest worker to promote. They are looking for someone who makes them look good. Someone who reflects well on their judgment. Someone who, when placed in a higher role, will make people think the decision maker has good instincts. That's a completely different profile than the person who executes flawlessly. It requires a different kind of visibility, not the visibility of results. The visibility of potential, which is inherently about the future, not the present. And potential is, by definition, something you perform, not something you prove. Which means that every year you spend proving how good you are at your current job, you are very quietly, very gradually making yourself harder to imagine anywhere else. The trap doesn't feel like a trap because it's lined with praise. It's built out of compliments. Every "I don't know what we'd do without you" is another brick in the wall around the ceiling above you. And the more you hear it, the more it feels like progress, when really, it's the system telling you exactly where it needs you to stay. Now here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. Most people, when they start to feel stuck, look outward for the reason. The manager who doesn't advocate enough. The company culture that doesn't reward the right things. The politics that seem to favor people who don't deserve it. And sometimes those things are real. The politics are real. The bias is real. The broken systems are real. But underneath all of that, there's a behavioral question that very few people honestly ask themselves. Am I behaving in a way that signals I belong at the next level, or am I just performing excellence at this one? Because those are two different signals. And organizations, even dysfunctional ones, are remarkably consistent at responding to them differently. The emotionally reactive person gets managed. The over-explainer gets assigned work, not authority. The validation seeker gets kept close but never elevated. The person who announces their ambitions gets quietly sidelined from the conversations where those ambitions might actually be discussed. And the person who does everything right, delivers everything perfectly, and works harder than anyone, they get used. Carefully, respectfully, and indefinitely. Nobody designed this. Nobody sat in a room and said, let's keep the best people down. It just emerges. It's a pattern baked into how human beings respond to each other in environments where resources are scarce and uncertainty is high. The system isn't cruel. It's just indifferent. It rewards what works for it, not what's fair to you. And the person who moves quietly through it, they are not gaming the system exactly. They are just the only one who actually sees it clearly. So here's where it'll leave you. The next time you're in a room at work, a meeting, a one-on-one, an offhand conversation in the hallway, pay attention. Not to what's being said, to what's being revealed. Notice who talks the most. Notice who volunteers the most information. Notice who needs the room to agree with them before they feel settled. Notice who's watching everything and saying very little. And then ask yourself quietly, honestly, which one are you? Because the answer might be the most important thing you figure out this year. Not because you need to change it, but because you might not have known until just now that it was a question worth asking.